A lot of patients come and ask me, Dr. Tan, should you give me ivermectin?
When I heard about ICU, I already pengsan already.
So imagine 6 months of not being able to taste, not being able to smell.
In today's episode, we are going to get answers to 5 COVID questions. Is there a role for ivermectin? How do you monitor at home? When should you be going to the hospital? What treatment will you receive at hospital? And is long COVID real? I am your host, Pauline.
I'm your co-host, Shilin. Welcome to TAW Real Chats.
Can you tell us what should be the first steps that someone who suspects they're having COVID, right? What should be the first steps that they take?
I'm a chest physician. So I deal with a lot of respiratory cases. If a patient come and tell you, let's say I have a fever for a few days, sore throat, headache, cough, these are a short history suggestive of viral in nature. In the current pandemic, especially in the northern region, the number one diagnosis to come to your mind is COVID-19. If you are having such a symptoms, isolate yourself. Get yourself checked.
One of the things that has come up from today, commonly, when one person gets it, the whole household is infected. Dr. Tan, do you have any insights to share about that? Because it seems like, is it because people don't isolate after they get infected? Or are there any SOPs that they should have at home?
Actually, the whole household having infections is a real thing. You see that almost every day. Half of the patients on the ward, they come in bulks, and then come in whole family. I think 2 days ago, I have a family came in. Father, mother, daughter, son, all infected. Same house. And the mother is in ICU. And the other 3 family members are fairly well in the normal ward. So this is, sometimes we have to understand that COVID is sometimes it's not about your problems, it's also your family problem as well. A lot of patients, what happens is that they if let's say, for example, if you have somebody in the house who are COVID positive, the first thing you should do is that you have to make sure that the ventilation is very good. So if you have problem isolating that family members who is COVID, then you do not isolate the sick one. You isolate the well one. You move the well out from the house. So that's the least you can do. Because sometimes a lot of houses and family, does not permit somebody to be isolated in the house with everybody around. So you move out the well, those who are not sick. Leave the sick. Of course, if they are too sick, you have to bring them to the hospital. But if they are infected with COVID and they are still fairly independent and well, you leave them in the same house, you move the one who are well out from the house, especially the elderly. Because you do not want the whole family to get infected. And if the outcome is not good, then you have to live with those outcomes for the rest of their life. So this is very important.
So isolation is number 1.
Isolation is the key.
Number 2, get yourself checked. How would you, with what way? Or what is checking? Let's go down to the basics.
Now they have all these kit, they call it Antigen kit, PCR kit. PCR kit, normally you have to get it in healthcare center. The difference between PCR kit and Antigen kit, PCR tends to detect early phase of the COVID. It can even detect when you're not yet infectious.
Right.
Whereas antigen, it actually detect viral protein. Normally, that it would detect somewhere after day 5 or day 6. So if somebody has infections, early phase, PCR will detect it pretty early. So if you test yourself antigen, even though you're COVID-19 positive in the early phase, it may be negative. Same thing applies to those patients' antibody. If you just had COVID-19, your antibody most likely will be negative because your body needs to react to the virus to produce antibody. That is why it is only positive towards the end of the viral phase.
It is crucial that when you feel unsure, so better go for PCR test to protect yourself, your loved one, and also to prevent spreading to others.
Yeah, I did like multiple PCR tests and I think it was very uncomfortable, but it was bearable. So whoever that's listening to this, if you have tried PCR tests, tell us your experience, how it made you feel.
And if I hear you correctly, you're saying that the antigen testing, it's not the most effective test to catch someone in early COVID days.
Yes,
So the PCR testing will be the gold standard.
Yes, gold standard. That's right.
Right.
I have
So be
a
very
question.
careful.
So when I did the PCR test, there's actually this CT value. So Dr. Tan, can you elaborate on what CT value means?
CT value basically means how infectivity of the virus. The lower the CT value, the more infectious it is. So normally your CT value crosses 35 or 40, normally you are fairly non-infectious. But if your CT value in the tens, you're highly infectious. Or in other words, you look at it in other words, you may be early of the infection.
So the higher the CT value, the less infectious the patient is.
Yes.
The lower the CT value, the higher.
Infectivity.
Yeah, right. And what about having do people, once you suspect you have COVID, how would you monitor yourself? What sort of equipment you might need?
Before we delve into how do you monitor yourself, we need to know what are the danger signs. Of course, the regular things that we do in our ward now those things are accessible in your Lazada or your Shopee. Things like pulse oximeter, things like temperature checking.
Yeah, we're going to slow down there a little bit because not everyone's going to know what's a pulse oximeter, I think. Although more people,
Pulse oximeter basically is a device that you put it in between your fingers.
I actually have one that's accessible. So when you do that, I'll just present. Yeah.
I think I have one here. I don't know where I put it. Yeah, something like this.
Yeah.
Something like this. Yes, that's one. So you put it in between. You put it between your fingers. It will tell you your pulse,
right,
and the oxygen level in your body.
Right.
The normal person, the oxygen in the body we call it saturation, oxygen saturation. It's around 98 to 100%.
Normal person, does it differ for age or everybody's about 98?
Yes, as you get older, your saturation tends to lower a little bit, but it shouldn't go below 96. Now, Pauline, we all have two lungs, right?
Right.
Everybody have two lungs.
Yes.
If we sit quietly with two lungs, normal lungs, our saturation should be 99, 98 and above.
Okay.
The highest is 100%. So if I ask you to go and jogging, your saturation maybe drop a little bit, maybe 96. And normally it maintains somewhere there because your body is healthy, it can cope. The thing is that what I'm going to mention next is very important. Because a lot of people have what they call that pulse oximeter at home, they monitor themselves. The common mistake they did was, for them, 96, 95, I'm still okay. But they forgot the fact that you have two lungs. The normal lungs should be 98, like I mentioned earlier, to 100%. So if your oxygen level under room air resting, you drop to 96, 97, normally in the ward, I'll tell the nurse, why you never inform me?
Oh.
Something's wrong. Like I said earlier, if you're sitting quietly, resting, your oxygen should be 98 and 100%. But when I go to the ward, I look at the monitor, 97, I'll start jumping. Oh my God, has a COVID attacked the lung? So when it drops to 95, alarm bells will ring. Quickly put the patient oxygen, quickly send the patient from scan. When it drops to 92, 93, the patient need to go to ICU. Now, of course, sometimes when we do rounds when I do rounds in the ward, a patient saturation is like, for example, 98, and patient having high-grade fever. So sometimes in the ward, we think maybe it's involved in the lung, maybe it's not. So what normally I do is I do a simple exertional testing for the patient. I ask the patient to stand and sit continuously for 1 minute. And I see, is there any drop in the saturation or the oxygen in the level in the body?
What do you mean when you say stand and sit?
Basically, you put a chair behind the patient. You put a pulse oximeter in between the patient like this. You put it on. Then on resting, you see what's the reading like. I give an example, the reading is 98%.
Okay.
So I ask the patient, can you stand and sit continuously, non-stop, for about a minute? If the oxygen drop 3%, then I'll be very alert. Most likely hit the lung.
Right.
Dr. Tan, you talk about standing and sitting.
Yeah.
What is the pace of, if you want to do it at home?
Of course, normal pace.
Whatever the patient is comfortable.
It's a rough guide. This is a rough guide to tell us when they exert, because sometimes we can't ask them to walk around in the ward. So if those of you are at home, you can walk around and check your oxygen. If there's a drop, the alarm bell has to ring.
And you said 3%, right? So
3%. This is roughly we use for 3%.
Right. So if 98 and you're doing this chair sitting standing test and it's about 96, 97, should alarm bells still be ringing?
Yes, you should be watching out. Right. Am I having an early phase of lung involvement?
Okay.
Especially those patients whom the temperature keep on having fever. With this combination with this, even the alarm bell should ring, whether is it involved the lungs. Had the patient enter the different categories of COVID, like category 3, We call it category 3, which involved the lung. The other mistake I noticed from some of the patients, I had 2 calls. I got one 2 days ago, I got one today. This is a bit unfortunate. She called my handphone. She got my number from one of her friends. This lady, middle-aged lady, she stayed with the son and her husband. So all of them are positive. They're at home. So what happened is that she called me to say, Dr. Tan, can you help me? My husband's oxygen level is 90%. Then I asked her, how many days has it been like this? I've been like this for the past 2 days. I say, why are you still at home? Why are you not going to see anyone? They say, my husband is not well, he's keep on having fever. But we borrowed the oxygen from France. I said, what oxygen you borrowed? The oxygen concentrator, the one you plug to the plug, and then it's called a concentrate oxygen. So his oxygen was normal. So that's why we thought we can wait. Because now it's pandemic, a lot of people are worried to go to hospital, and most hospitals are full. He called me today because the oxygen unable to sustain. You asked me what to do. Then I asked her, your husband need to go to hospital as soon as possible because the oxygen is very low. Most probably he's category 4, which I'll come back to you later. What are the categories of COVID?
Yeah.
Category 4, I say if you still stay at home, if I worry something might happen to him. She asked me, can you send an ambulance? I say, unfortunately, our hospital is full as well. So I suggest her to go to the nearest hospital because her house is not very near to my hospital. She said she tried to call a few hospitals. There's nobody pick up the phone. I suggest to her, you have to drive her family to the hospital. So what I'm trying to say is that although gadgets are available, you can get it online easily. You can get it in your local pharmacy. You have to ask yourself, are you well-versed enough or are you trained in handling this? Because the patient will get oxygen, put the family or themselves on oxygen. They have this false impression that they are all right because of all this news going around in India, in Indonesia, when people lining up, getting oxygen tank filled up. Bear in mind, oxygen is not the treatment or not the treatment for the root of the COVID. The root of COVID is virus.
So
it
what
is not the treatment for the COVID.
So what you're saying is that oxygen is not the treatment. It's not a substitute for treatment.
It is a supportive.
So going back, if someone suspects they have COVID, number 1, they have to isolate.
Yep.
Number 2,
check.
was it? No, it was checking. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah,
so
check.
number 1 was isolation. Number 2 would be to check.
Yes.
PCR would be the ideal gold standard. Number 3 would be monitoring. And we talk about monitoring, we talk about an oximeter. But beyond monitoring, I think if I hear you right, Dr. Tan, you're saying that beyond monitoring, you have to watch for the alarm bells.
Yes.
And not seek treatment at home with, remedies or oxygen and things like that. The alarm bells would be the oxygen levels dropping. Are there any other alarm bells that you're looking at?
When the first day you got the COVID, normally you're pretty well. So the problem normally comes on day 6 and 7 onwards.
Right.
Why is that so? Because the peak of the virus is go up and on day 5, day 6. So when you have the COVID virus in you, your body will react with this COVID. It will produce a lot of what we call cytokine. So cytokine basically is a chemical that induces inflammation in the body. So this cytokine will cause problems. We call it cytokine storm. Normally comes on day 7. So they will generate a lot of signs which you need to watch out. Things like persistent fever. It can go up very high, 39 to 40 Celsius, continuously. And if you don't do anything, it will cause a lot of inflammation in your body ache. When it goes to the lung, it will cause inflammation in the lung. Sometimes inflammation in the lung, you can't see it if it's early on normal chest x-rays. You only can catch it in CT scan. Then once you have that sets in, it will affect your lung function. You will feel breathless. You'll cough non-stop. Then when that happens, even worse, the lung cannot compensate. You'll have your oxygen will drop. And if you still do not do anything, then you enter a different phase. Lack of oxygen. Sometimes it will go to a certain extent that you're on the way of no return. So that's why it's essential that you seek help early, especially those who are high-risk group.
So you're a mother of a 19-year-old and you are a senior operations manager. Could you tell us more about what were your first COVID symptoms?
I was having fever and chill, and my temperature at that time is about 39.1 degrees C. I thought that it's just a normal common cold symptom. So I just decided to take a paracetamol and stay at home. However, I was still experiencing a chill with a fever on the next day morning. So my family members suspected I might be infected by COVID-19 or maybe dengue viruses. So they advised me to go and seek for medical advice. So I decided to go to the nearby clinics
So how did the you mentioned the nearest clinic respond?
Actually, the whole diagnostic process is actually based on the touchless methodology and approach. My body temperature was measured by the GP with the forehead thermal scan instead of ear thermal scan. So I was having fever and I was shivering that time. But from the outcome of the forehead the thermal scan, the reading is only shown 36.4, which is no fever. So the doctor, the GP only advised me, I think, you don't have any fever. So you go back and have a rest. But then the symptoms were getting worsened. So I decided to go to a hospital in the evening of the same day. When I reached the hospital, immediately they took my temperature. It's about 38 plus degrees C. And
it's really high.
Yeah. And of course, it's having fever. And then the emergency department doctor, and then he conduct the further investigation and evaluation by carrying out this PCR test as well as blood test. And very unfortunate, I was confirmed COVID positive based on the test result. So immediately I admitted to the hospital for isolation.
So what was that like for you after you got into the hospital? Did the illness progress for you while you were at hospital?
Oh yeah, actually I was having sore throat and blocked nose and also low oxygen level. And also breathing disorders. I have a shortness of breath. Because of that, I was steroid being prescribed due to my lung infection, and I was treated with the oxygen therapy due to the breathing disorder.
Shilin, how about yourself? Did you have further symptoms at the hospital?
I think mine was considered mild compared to Soin, but I did lost my sense of smell and taste. And personally, I think that one is the worst symptoms among all, because it is weird having that feeling that, when you're showering, you're not able to smell your shampoo. And then when you're, eating, you're just chewing texture, you can't taste anything. And my neighbor found out about this. So she's a Punjabi family. She shared with me that, Dr. Tan actually saw me eating it. So she told me about this spice called clove. I try it. I chew it. Only in my mouth, chew it, and then I don't swallow it. And then I have that and also lemon water. And I do that with moderation. And I got my taste bud and, smells back after 10 days. I did some readings online, and some people that, they take a longer time, and it can go up to 6 months. So imagine 6 months of not being able to taste, not being able to smell. I think that's really awful. I'm sorry for whoever that's going through this, but I hope that there will be an end to this. Hopefully you have it back and share this. I hope you will try this, and hopefully it will be working out for you also.
Friends listening in, if you've had COVID, tell us if you lost your taste buds too, and what did you do to get that back? Soyin, did you lose your taste buds as well?
Oh yeah, actually mine a little bit different. Because I same like Eileen, I also lost the smell. But until today, I still encounter the same problem. I still have this issue. But then instead of I lost the taste, I actually eat everything that time in the hospital. Everything also very salty. Even my husband prepared some food for me, and then I kept complaining. I say, why you put so much salt, so salty? But then he said, no. My son said, my son told me, no, mommy, it's okay. But for me, it's I eat everything also very salty. Even the hospital food also I feel very salty.
Oh, and I heard the hospital food's quite bland.
So I try to check against. Actually, I try to go to the internet and YouTube to check whether this is kind of symptom. But normally the symptom right now is either you lost your taste or your smell, but don't have that kind of symptom like salty or whatever. So, but for me, the case a little bit different. But today, this problem already no more. Already back to normal in terms of taste. Already back to normal, but only the smell I still have problem. Yeah, it's not 100% yet, but still a little bit improved, but not 100% yet back to normal.
Shilin, what was your story like? Tell us, how did you discover you had COVID?
My mom got it first, and then she actually spread it to me and my brother. And with the news, when the news broke, my relatives, my friends all just keep sending us like this vitamin C and then this Lianhua Chinese medication. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. And then with Chinese herbal tea, it's just a lot to take. They'll be telling you that you should be taking this in the morning. You should be taking lemon water. There's so many remedies that we should be doing at home. And by that time, I was still unsure if I got it or not. But it's just that someone from the family got it. Everyone was just trying to help. Like for my case, I think it's hard for me to really digest that from my mom, because when she found out that she was positive, we did the test also. My brother and I, we did the test on the next day. We did PCR. That's my first PCR test. We were still negative. So, okay, then we thought maybe we didn't get it, but I doubt so because I was very close with my mother. And then from there, we were telling her like, you shouldn't, listen to all these news that, now that you're positive, people keep sending her all these messages from Facebook groups and then WhatsApp groups and WeChat groups. And they have all these different things that she should be doing now that she's positive. And she won't listen to us. I believe this is quite relatable to most people, is that whatever that we tell our parents, I'm not complaining. Mom, if you're watching this, I'm not complaining. But it's just that it's hard for her to take it in when she knows that she's positive and there are so many things that she needs to do. And when we tell her from like getting advice from a younger people, and especially they are your children, it's just a bit hard.
And that's a struggle, for us who are slightly younger. How do we actually tell our parents or our elderly relatives on what to do, when to seek hospital care? So friends, if you're listening in and you struggle with your parents about SOP or how to treat COVID symptoms, do drop us a comment below.
And please tell me your secrets on how to convince your parents. I mean, it took us a painful lesson to actually got COVID to learn a lesson. So I don't want, people out there to go through the same thing.
And then sometimes because this COVID generate a lot of excitement in the public. So there'll be, person 1, person 2, person 3, they'll tell you different things. At the end of the day, you got confused. So a lot of our families and friends, they are trying to help. So they are sending us advice, they're sending us remedies, all those things. But we have to be very cautious in taking into all this advice. They meant good, but sometimes they may not be aware that the advice that they gave you is not the right one. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are somebody who is having COVID, or you have somebody who have COVID, and you would like to help, be sure that the advice that you gave to them, the medication you gave to them, is a genuine, proven, evidence-based advice or medications. Because otherwise you may cause trouble.
More harm than good in the end, isn't it?
Yes, more harm, because your intention is good, but you don't know that, what will be the outcome like. So if you're not sure, try not to share. If you want to share, you can share them with the hospital number for them to go to the hospital.
Yeah. So, I think anyone listening in can hear how frustrated Dr. Tan is, because I think you do have quite a bit of experience with people dishing out wrong advice, and that's why we're having this episode today.
After we all recover and back home, it was more casual that we are able to live life as normal again. But I believe to the people around us, it was a shock. Like even when I did walks with my mom, our neighbor who wanted to talk to us, when they see us, they will take extra step back because they want to have this social distance, but it's way far. They still want to talk to you. It's just that I think it's normal that this stigma exists, or that person actually got COVID, that family got COVID. They still care, but at the end of the day, time is all that you need to be normal again. For example, my boss was uncomfortable in meeting me in person, and my sister too. But which I understand, and because they have young kids at home, they are unvaccinated, and with all that reasons, I really think you can't be too safe. So for whoever, maybe your friend just recovered and they tell you that they are no longer infectious, I think you can take a week. There's no rush in meeting anyone, at this state. I just think with all the growing cases in Malaysia, you can wait. All your social settings, like events, all that can wait.
Can I add? The COVID stigma is a real thing. It's a real thing. If you will tell somebody you're having COVID, I can be sure that nobody will come to your house for the next 1 month.
True.
Yeah.
If I may add, in terms of infectivity.
Yes, I was going to ask you that, Dr. Tan.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, you got category 1 until 5.
Yes.
So in category 1 and 2 patients, we are considered as mild patients. So based on studies, they say that more than 90% of the patients by day 10, mild
day 10
category,
from?
Not infectious. Day 10 from the first day of symptoms.
Not day of recovery. Day 10 from the first day of symptoms. Okay.
So it's very important that you know when is your first day of symptoms? Very important.
Right.
So for those patients who are later category, like category 5, we even in the hospital, when we nurse them, we do not let them mix it with the normal patients, non-COVID patients, until day 21.
Day 21. So that's a big gap. 10 to 21. That's
Yes.
just over double.
Even those patients require ventilator assistance, we will remain them in COVID ICU for at least 21 days before we move them into the normal ICU, where they can mix with other patients. That is why you always have this intensive care unit bed shortage. This is happening throughout the world, not only in Malaysia, because you cannot move them out because they are still deemed infection for at least 3 weeks. And ICU patients normally are quite a bad COVID 4 and above 5, and this is true in your government hospital, because it's not they don't want, because the bed shortage, too many patients. So only patient category 5 or bed 4 will be in the ICU. That's why in the government hospital, you look at the way they operate, they are opening more and more ICU because the patient has to be there at least for 3 weeks.
Understand. Dr. Tan, what can a patient expect to receive in terms of treatment? You mentioned, look, if there are alarm bells, you have these signs, you need to get medical care in hospital. But when they get to hospital, what sort of treatment can they expect to receive?
All right. The treatment, you look at how the virus or the disease progress. It is because of the cytokine. Cytokine is a chemical that causes inflammation towards your body reaction because of the body antibodies and viral reaction. It produces a lot of cytokine. We call it cytokine storm.
Right.
So cytokine storm is the one that causes the patient to have persistent fever, involve lung, all those things. So the treatment, that is why the basis treatment of the COVID, what we use in the hospitals are actually steroid.
Right.
In contrast to what people say outside, ivermectin, we use steroid.
Okay.
Or we use anti-inflammatory medications. Those are the medication that we give in the hospital. A lot of people mention about ivermectin. I shall not go into why I disagree with ivermectin, but what I can tell you is that it is not recommended in Malaysia. It is not recommended by WHO. And it is mentioned in WHO website. You go and check. It is only recommended in clinical study setting, not in the hospital practice.
What is, just to unpack that phrase a little bit for everyone out there, what is clinical setting? Does that mean if I go to the clinic?
Study setting. What I'm trying to clinical study setting means that you do it on a research basis.
Right.
So I never treat anyone with ivermectin. Few reasons. Number one, I do not want to discredit those people who have done studies on ivermectin. But the problem with ivermectin is that we do not know, at least I do not know, how my patient will respond to it. And I have other better medication to treat the patients. Why should I try something that clinical data is still insufficient? From my point of view, of course. So I can't speak on behalf of other people, but from my point of view, because the pathophysiology of the disease is such a way that the treatment is actually steroid will work. And my patient, first-hand experience, they all responded very well and actually walk up to the hospital. So that's why a lot of patients come and ask me, Dr. Tan, should you give me ivermectin? I'll tell them no, because it is not recommended based on my knowledge. So that's why it's very important that for those of you outside who self-purchase ivermectin, if you want to take ivermectin, you have to take on your own risk. Although there are people recommend certain dosage, but if you take at home by yourself, would you able to monitor the side effect? Do you have the facility resources to monitor the side effect? Like liver toxicity. Liver toxicity can only be measured early measured by blood tests. So they even mention for prophylaxis for ivermectin. If prophylaxis means that you take the ivermectin to prevent you from getting COVID. But the question now is that, how long are you going to take ivermectin to prevent COVID? Because now it's pandemic. If you were to take for the next 1 year, how are you going to monitor yourself for the next 1 year? So there's a lot of factors you need to weigh in and consider before you make this decision. I would not advise if you have no proper monitoring. I have no experience in treating my patient ivermectin, and it is not recommended by our health authority, and it's also not recommended by the World Health Authority as well. So if you want to take, my advice is that please make sure you know what you're doing before you take a medication.
So I hear you loud and clear. You're saying watch the alarm bells, get yourself medical care. Your protocol does not include ivermectin for
Yes, and my
reasons,
protocol does not include ivermectin.
right? And with all those medications that you've mentioned earlier, your patients have generally done quite well,
Yes,
and without
yes.
having to resort to ivermectin. You mentioned ivermectin has that liver toxicity. How real is that liver toxicity? Like in terms of because there are many medications, even like paracetamol. So I think it's been
Yes.
going on in WhatsApp groups that, hey, you know what, paracetamol can also give you liver toxicity, so don't worry about ivermectin. What do you say to that?
Well, Pauline, I have to stand on the ground that I can't comment on this.
Right.
I have to be fair to the publication people gave right about ivermectin. And the one of the main reason is that I have no experience. I don't give to my patients, and
Okay.
because it's not allowed in Malaysia for
Right.
us medical doctor to give. EG has said very clearly it's not licensed in Malaysia for
Right.
COVID treatment. So I can't really comment on this. But those of you who want to take, I can tell you that in Malaysia we are not recommending it.
So everybody hear Dr. Tan loud and clear. So I want to come back to you. You mentioned Dr. Tan said you were 4B. You were in the COVID ICU. You needed oxygen support, and you were breathless. We talked a lot about the physical aspects of and physical challenges of COVID, but what was that experience like for you at that time when you were in the COVID ICU? What was going through your mind?
During that time, actually, I was quite depressed because I don't know what will be the outcome, right? So because I'm very worried and very anxiety and very, very depressed, and I cannot control my emotion during that stage. Because if a normal sickness admission, then at least your family members can still come and visit you. But for this COVID case, right, you cannot. You need to keep a distance with them. You can only communicate with them via phone or maybe video conference. And also, I try to hide this from my son because he's still young, and then maybe cannot accept the facts. So I still have to hide this from him. So every time when he wants to talk to him, then I need to find a lot of excuse that mommy very tired, mommy the doctor nurse come, mommy cannot talk to you. So I need to hide this. So it make me become more depressed and emotional during my stay in the hospital, during the hospitalization period. So but I managed to overcome this is true. Like sometimes when I cannot sleep, and then I cannot sleep well, I also go and search from YouTube to come up to go and find some motivational code, and also what kind of let's say those simple exercise to help me to relieve, to get rid of all this anxiety, right? So I think that's the only thing that I can help myself, because of course we have a good medical treatment from the hospital, and the frontline people also very good, and also always give me a very positive support. But however, as a patient, right, we need to do our part as well, because it is a lot of things still depends on us. So I try to search, like for example, my oxygen level was very low. So I told myself, how I cannot forever like that. I'm only 53 years old. I still have a long way to go. So I try to search from internet. Actually, a lot of people send to me the video clips. So what kind of exercise is good? I try every script that every video they share me. I try, but I found one which is quite effective lah. To me is there's from the yoga type one. So I try to practice. I try to have this exercise regularly during my admission, during in the hospital, as well as currently under recovery stage at home. I still take this as my regular exercise, which is a breathing exercise to strengthen my lung, to increase my lung capacity. So actually there are several exercises, but I select the the easiest one, because until today I still have sometimes on and off I still have a breathing disorders issue, so I cannot take a too heavy exercise. So got several, I just select the three the simplest one, the three, which is number one is purse lift, and then second one is diaphragmatic, and number three is they call it the one the code I need to refer is a Makarasana, something like that. Makarasana. These three actually really beneficial and help me, and I can see the significant improvement. Even actually when I discharged from hospital, I supposed to have. I also actually, in fact, I ran the oxygen to as a standby as well. But because of I quite disciplined in performing the exercise, I carry out about two times per day. One is morning, another one is somewhere afternoon, and also each time about 8 to 10 minutes. So I managed to get rid of this oxygen support within 2 days. Within 2 days after I discharged. And today I totally I just put aside and I plan to return to the supplier. So
fantastic.
Because I think I think that I don't know, I would like to share is because I found that suit me. So I would like to share. That's why I want to share with my experience.
Yeah, we will definitely link the video that you were saying in the YouTube description box and in the Facebook comment section. So whoever that's curious to find out, or maybe they want to try the breathing exercise or the 3 types that you were mentioning, they can refer to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but most important thing I would like to add on is the exercise have to do it before you with the empty stomach.
Oh, why is that?
Empty stomach because empty stomach, that means that before you're having a meal, because I tried once after having my breakfast, then I feel very uncomfortable. So that's my personal experience. So my suggestion is that if you want to try, it's better to try with on the empty stomach. So before you have your breakfast or lunch or whatever, before having a meal.
So Yin, you mentioned you when you left hospital, you're still with oxygen support?
I supposed to because at the time my oxygen level is not up to that level yet. I think about sometimes 96, 97 and 98, but supposed to be maybe 99. But also a standby purposes because I supposed to. That's why I ran the facilities and at home. But I try to cut down myself, and also of course I seek doctor advice as well. I seek doctor advice, but I try to cut down myself is because we need to start with the first step. Right, we need to start from a first step. So I gradually, like initially, morning I take out. I don't depend on oxygen, but at night I still put on. But then after that, I slowly cut down. At night, maybe only few hours. Then I slowly cut down myself until I totally now no more depends on oxygen.
Wow. Yeah. What I really like, just to highlight to everyone, is how you really helped yourself. How low was your oxygen at its lowest? When
initially,
you were in hospital?
I'm not too sure that time because. I'm not too sure already because the time in the hospital I also blur. I only know that you need to go ICU. When I heard about ICU, I already pengsan already. So I don't know what is the actual reading. I don't know how low the lowest number. I don't know.
If I remember correctly, your lowest was about 80% or slightly lower.
Wow.
Was very bad.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is so that everyone, again, just to emphasize how real COVID is. Many stories I heard, like Shalene's, right? It is mild, it's category 2, but we don't often hear from somebody who has made it out of Cat 4 to tell us, look, it was real. I was in ICU. Oxygen level was about 80. I had to help myself. On top of all the medical treatments, I still have to help myself. And here I am today to leave and to tell the story. So that's a wonderful insight I think you can give us. What you mentioned also is that after you came out, you had all these breathing difficulties, and the breathing exercises have helped you. So that's long COVID, isn't it, Dr. Tan?
Yeah, long COVID. Basically, long COVID by definitions that the symptoms persist after the effectivity of the COVID is no longer there.
Right.
So in a very layman term, it's basically the side effect of COVID. You're no longer infectious, but the damage done by the COVID towards your body. It can range from a very simple thing like insomnia. Some patient came to me, chest pain. But all sort of tests and all came at normal. And some, we mainly see in the lung. When the lung is badly damaged by COVID, some patients, even though they are not infectious anymore, they will have damage to the lung. We normally see, one of the examples we normally see is organizing pneumonia. The damage of lungs sort of organize itself. So if these are patients, they need longer treatment of steroid. We talk about months of steroid. Then we will monitor them slowly. Then we cut down the steroid dose slowly.
Right.
If you don't treat these patients, they miss the boat. The lung become fibrous.
Right.
Fibrous means that it will be hardening. Then this will be a burnout lung.
And that's fatal, I imagine.
Normally it's not fatal, but it's sort of if it's a lot, it's quite a big chunk of lung is involved. It may decapacitate the patients to a certain extent. They may require oxygen for lifelong. Depends on how severe is the damage or the fibrosis. Right. So sometimes the story doesn't end there when you get out of hospital.
Like So-Yin, right?
Yeah.
So her story didn't end there.
It didn't end there sometimes. Sometimes half of the stories end there.
Right.
But the half of the story, that the first half of the story may be life-threatening, but the second half of the story is sometimes how you recover. If you don't recover properly, you may end up with the damaged lungs. You may end up with the complication of COVID.
And when you say long COVID, how long are we talking about before you sort of get out of the woods? Is it never, or is it like 3 months? What are we looking at?
Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that it is a continuity of the COVID infections. But long COVID starts after you're no longer infectious. Whatever residual problems you have from COVID is considered long COVID. Like I said earlier, it can be ranged from a minor thing like loss of taste bud to the extent that you require oxygen to breathe. So all these things lumped together are called long COVID syndrome. Right.
Gosh, that's a lot to take in. With all this long COVID symptoms as well. Shilin, do you experience any long COVID?
I had a breathless episode and occasional chest pain, but it's been 2 weeks and I don't have it anymore. Yeah, but when you can feel the chest pain, it's actually a physical pain. So I didn't experience it before, and after I got home, I actually felt like it is like painful but it's bearable. Just that I was also worried, but it didn't happen anymore, so I'm okay now.
Well, if you're listening in, for those in our audience, if you've had COVID before, do share with us in the comments section any long COVID challenges that you've experienced and what it's been like for you. We'd love to hear from you. Given such a traumatic experience for you, So-Yin, what would be your advice for our audience today?
Okay, my advice is everyone to take this pandemic seriously. Especially practice this physical distancing seriously, because I notice a lot of people that still never strictly follow SOP, and then like wearing masks, also make sure wear properly, that cover mouth and nose, and then also stay home and try to avoid those crowded places and less outdoors activities, and avoid prolonged contacts with others. That's my advice. And also go and sign up for vaccine to prevent to protect yourself and also to those vulnerable. So that's my advice to everyone. And also important is the house also make sure that a good ventilation to increase the air exchange. Like last time, I always like to close the window and door and switch on the aircon because Malaysia weather is so hot. But now I totally changed my lifestyle. I open the window and also the window and also the door so that I have a fresh air to come in. Yeah. So I also changed my lifestyle. Like for example, eat a healthy diet. Instead of only focus on those very high processing food. So my advice to everyone is important is take this pandemic seriously, because when you kena only you know. You makan chili only you tahu pedas.
I so agree with you. Yeah. And I think people feel pressured when they go to friend's house or relative's house. Maybe it's just a normal visit, but they feel pressured that they have to remove their mask. Like for me, my experience is that, I was still wearing my mask when, my relative came to my house to pray for a quick one. And then they were like, oh, Anto ko tidak le mask eh. Then I'm like, but I feel like, I had to explain, I just feel safer that, I should be wearing my mask. Then they're like, but the thing is, it's not the location, you see. It's the people that, you don't know who they met today, where they've been today for the past few days, and they're coming to you. So I think even if it's your closest friend or your relative, just don't let them feel like, make you feel like you are pressured that, oh, I have to remove my mask. I don't want to offend anyone. I think we should normalize this, that, if I want to wear my mask, I want to double mask inside the, indoor or whatever, when the air is not, the ventilation is not good. I am allowed to, and I'm supposed to feel okay to do it.
I'm so glad you pointed it out. I think there's always that pressure when you go to somebody's house to remove that mask, isn't it? Shilin, do you have any other pearls of wisdom to offer us today?
I think what helped me is that you form your own COVID bubble. also like some people call it home bubble or safety bubble, which simply means that, one group of people only hang out with the same group of people. So you are limiting your exposure to the same type of people. So for example, if I'm working from home and I see my mom and then maybe this one friend, and then we only see this one friend and my mom. So besides, going out for groceries run or those necessary things, you actually don't go out. And I think it's something that we all should do, because it's a bit insane that you are always indoor for that 1 year already, and it's almost impossible. I'm going to say it's tough for us to live in a world without COVID, at least not in near future, but we need to learn how to live with COVID. Is that you choose your members, like you choose these people that you know you can trust them, that they won't go out and they will stay home, and then you only hang out with them. I just feel bad for the kids now, like they're supposed to be the age that running around, going around, kicking ball and all that, and now they are always stuck indoors. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Having that safety bubble. I think Dr. Amir Singh has shared that in one of his viral videos going around to form that social safety bubble for ourselves. Yeah.
No doubt COVID is going to be with us for many years. I think it's going to change the whole healthcare industry, the way we see patients. And I'm particularly high risk. I always stopped seeing some of my friends. I always stopped going to people's house because of my work nature.
So you're stigmatized as well?
Not really. I don't. I think to a certain extent, yes. But I just basically I call people on the phone. I don't go to people's house anymore. And if I have to go to my friend's house, I would choose not to enter the house. I would stay outside the house. And I will tell them straight to the point that, look, I'm treating COVID patients. I'm not going to the house. So we have to learn how to live with it.
It's very thoughtful of you.
We have to learn how to live with it. And vaccine is the key. It's the key. Vaccine is really a key, because you do see patients. I have a family came in, husband and wife, not family, husband and wife. They don't have kids. So the husband is about 50 plus, 40 plus. The wife is about 30, late 30s, early 40s. And they have one elderly mother at home. And guess what? The mom is injected with, the mom has been vaccinated.
Right.
And the couple is not vaccinated.
Right.
And the husband ended up with category 4, the wife ended up with category 2. And the mom is A-OK, nothing happened.
Oh, wow.
And now she has, when they go back, when the son has long COVID, when they go back, the mother is the one who take care, because the wife's still having a bit of symptoms as well when they went back. They're not fully recovered, but they are not infectious, but they are well. But they are still, when you have all this virus, you still feel weak. So the mom have to really help in the housework. So vaccine is a key.
It makes a big difference, and that's what
Make a big difference. Make a big difference. And the thing is that the places that we went, like just now pointed out, showing that ventilation is very important. If you were to have to dine in certain, because now things have been slowly opened up. If you want choose to have your dinner or lunch in restaurant, I would suggest you go to a place where they have open space, not a closed, confined place with an AC. Especially when those places with high COVID cases, it is a bit unwise. So you may want to go to open space. So try to limit yourself in a closed space environment. Jogging is fairly safe. Unless you jog in a group. Individual open air is good.
Right.
If you jog treadmill next to somebody who is sick, of course, this is not the right thing to do. So exercise, I think, is still very, very good. We need to keep ourselves healthy.
Yep.
But do it in an open space.
So you're advocating vaccination. You're advocating ventilation.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Well, if you are infected, isolate yourself.
Yes, I think that's come across. I mean, you've really emphasized that. So I think that's all we have today. Poor Soyin. I mean, Soyin's still coughing, yeah. So if you have COVID and are isolating at home, you have to monitor closely. At the alarming signs, seek medical care. Early medical intervention could make all the difference.
Yes.
For the rest of us, get vaccinated. Form your safety bubble. I think Soyin said this very, very clearly. Take COVID seriously, right? Now, people, that's all we've got for you today. If you know someone who has got COVID or you've got COVID, share your stories in the comments section below. We want to hear all about it. And if you like this episode, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you at our next Real Chats episode. Until then, stay safe and take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.